that presentation 3 months later landed me an opportunity to start my own company.
In that moment, I realized I could go sell my ass off, but these people were involved with doing the delivery of what it was I sold.
The difference in terms of size of millions was like, a $350 million company and maybe, Sandler being an $80 million company down to a $20 million company.
You're helping people become more productive at prospecting, the hardest thing in sales. It's their biggest challenge.
The Modern Selling Podcast.
Mario, I appreciate you taking some time to jump on the podcast today. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Walter, I couldn't be more excited to be here with you today, man. Thank you so much for having me on the Sales and Cigars podcast.
We had a recent conversation on your podcast, and there was like a lot of energy. You do guest spots a lot, right? Sometimes it's not all there. Yours was fun, fast paced, and exciting, except for the part where I was choking at the end.
You're good, man. No problem. Yeah, we've had the Modern Selling podcast for over 8 years, over nearly 300 episodes, in the top 1.5% of all podcasts globally. Probably not because I've got a bazillion downloads. That's not the reason. It's more likely because most podcasts actually stop after the first year. So kudos to you in terms of Sales and Cigars. And this is a great podcast. Love listening to it. And anybody else, we've got the Modern Selling podcast as well, which is my podcast that you were my guest on. And I appreciate you joining me, bud.
Yeah, well, it's fun to go meet other podcasters, but other sales guys. That, to me, we're just going to have a conversation today about a topic that's really important: prospecting and making that efficient. It's there's lots of guys who've written books about this. I mean, Jeb Blount has done pretty well just talking about prospecting. But yeah, anybody, we'll have your podcast in there, but 800 episodes. What the statistic I heard was that most podcasts don't get past 8 episodes.
Wow, 8 episodes. To be clear, it was 300 episodes, almost 300 episodes, but I didn't realize the number was 8 episodes. Wow, that's shocking.
But it's a lot of work.
It is.
Most people kind of lazy. It can be expensive if you don't get the structure put together and some support with it. My goal was to have interesting conversations with interesting people and provide value to an audience of people that I want to do business with. And I'm learning. Every episode I do, I learn something from a guest, and even the bad ones, I learn something from. So this should be like a college class talking to you.
Well, I love it. And, to be honest with you, not everybody can actually be on a podcast. If you think about the energy you've got to bring behind the audio component, when someone's listening to a podcast, they're usually running on this treadmill or they're driving in a car, and you've got to bring that energy through vocal modulation, excitement, passion, and the
pacing, tone.
Exactly. A lot of those things, not everybody has. So I'm excited to have done the podcast for so long. And I've met a lot of amazing leaders along the way.
Well, congratulations. That's awesome. So I always start with this question. The audience tells me it gives them an insight into the guest's thinking. So is there a book, Mario, that you gift or reread on a regular?
Funny you asked that question. So first off, I do have an answer for you, but I will tell you that there's a caveat. And the caveat is I hate reading books. And in fact, one of the last books that I read was the one that I'm about to tell you about. But before that was in college, very specifically. And I only read a book because I was required to read it as a result of having to get a grade. Normally, when I read books, I'm interested in the first area, touch, section, chapter, whatever it might be. But I'm a big blog reader and I love watching short form video content. So that's my thing. But in answer to your question, there is. I actually got a book from one of the leaders that I used to work for, who basically I was then and probably still kind of now am. They called me the bull in the china shop, and he gave me this book by Marshall Goldsmith, and the book was "What Got You Here Won't Get You There." And that book was absolutely phenomenal in terms of learning how to understand your own personality and learning how to change the dynamics of your engagement, your outreach, your commentary, your words, and how to change that for the various different audiences. Because what you used to do is not necessarily what will get you where you want to go. And that's very important to learn that. And I was given that book because of my personality type and because of the reputation that I had built up over the years. In fact, it took me because of that reputation, which was basically the type A, overachiever sales guy who went sales management, and doing very large deals and, customers loving me and all that good stuff. That was not the same approach of how I dealt with people internally to get what I wanted done. What I needed to be able to bring to the table in terms of a leader and learning how to work collaboratively, as opposed to, hey man, if you want to tell our president that we're going to kick this $50 million deal to the side or to the, kick it away, I'm happy to let him know that you told me you're not going to do this and that we're going to lose this deal because of that. Right. And that's what I used to say to people directly, like, you don't do this, it's no problem. I will just go let so-and-so know that you decided not to do this, and that it's going to take our $50 million, $30 million, $10 million, whatever the $1 million deal is, and we're going to kiss it goodbye. And so that style was definitely what people thought when I went into the management position. And of course, I used that a couple times, and of course, I got in trouble a couple of times. But the book, Marshall Goldsmith, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, that was actually one of the only books that I could think of reading in my adult life.
I appreciate that candor, because there's a lot of people that prefer to either listen to books or to go grab the information they want from other media. And that's I love the honesty there. But there's similarities between when we were younger, right? Because that's when this happened. You're out there hustling, you're doing the job of sales, and then you come back and you're just bull in a china shop, as you said. I had to learn that the hard way. I mean, one of the old guys I worked for came to me and said, "We need to go have a beer." And I'm like, "Okay, what did I do?" He goes, "You did something, but we're going to go have a beer." And he just was very kind and said, "I understand your passion. I understand why you're that excited, but these people don't. And you're just ruining your relationships with these people. And here's the deal. You need them." And he was right. In that moment, I realized I could go sell my ass off, but these people were involved with doing the delivery of what it was I sold. So if I didn't get them on board, so I had to sell it internally as well as externally. And what would frustrate me was that it was harder sometimes to get it out the back door than it was for me to bring it in the front door, right?
Always like that. It's always like that.
There's always somebody that wants to get in the way or say no. And yeah, but in sales, we have a little bit of license there, because if you're producing revenue and you're doing your job and you're ethical about it, you might be an asshole in the office, but if you're ethical about it, you're not going anywhere. They want you to stick around. So they're going to help you learn. And that guy, he wasn't a great manager, but in that moment, he gave me what I needed to help me see that I was just going to blow up all those relationships. And those people were the kind of people that they didn't care. They would have just blew up the deal, and I would have lost. So it's a tough lesson, but I learned. Talk a little bit about your journey, right? We talked a little bit about the podcast, but talk a little bit about your journey to get to where you are from corporate America to entrepreneur.
Wow, that's a great question. So this is my 27th year inside of B2B sales and marketing and leadership. And I've managed everything from an individual or from retail all the way to large $120 million contracts that we use to close. I've had everything from public sector and federal to the business enterprise globals nationals. Span of control of $300 million. My last stop was a VP of sales where I helped launch a digital sales training program and tools and technology program to 350 sellers worldwide. And that opportunity of being able to launch that worldwide to our sales organization is what landed me the opportunity to speak at LinkedIn Sales Conference, the annual users conference in 2015, October of 2015 to be exact. And so I actually spoke there for about a 45-minute session, and it actually lasted a little over 45 minutes, so 48 minutes, because there was a ton of Q&A that people were asking about. And LinkedIn asked me to speak because of something that I had accomplished that no other enterprise organization had ever accomplished, and still to this day has never accomplished. And that was, number one, we had 100% rep adoption of LinkedIn Sales Navigator. And number two, we had 100% rep adoption of our video sales prospecting tool. And number three, we had 100% of our reps in the first 6 months of deployment attribute one sales opportunity to the open, close won, or close lost sales pipeline. And that has never happened before inside of LinkedIn history in the enterprise. And so LinkedIn wanted to know what was the secret sauce. How did you do that? So I actually gave a presentation, which, by the way, if you went to Vengreso's YouTube channel or LinkedIn's YouTube channel, you will actually still be able to find that video. It's up and still in production of the entire system of how I went and launched a digital sales training and technology program. So funny as it may be, that presentation 3 months later landed me an opportunity to start my own company. And what happened was the company I was with then, they were actually doing rounds of layoffs. And the company I was with prior to, when I started, we had 80,000 employees. When I left 14 years later, we had 40,000 employees. I was done laying off people. I was done with a shrinking company. And so when they were laying off, I said, fine, take me. I'm good to go. And one day after leaving the company, I wrote a blog article, which was a conversation with my then oldest son, 5 years old at that time. And that was 9 years ago. And the blog article was, "Dad, you said LinkedIn would make you money." And so it was that particular article that I wrote. And as a direct result, within 4 days of publishing that, I had several executives from large Fortune 100 companies reach out to me saying, "Hey, I read your blog article, saw you were out of a job." And 5 days after that first contact, I had another set of executives. And within 3 weeks of publishing that article, I had 2 signed contracts with 2 of the largest Fortune 100s to basically offer consulting and training services, exactly what I had launched internally. They wanted for themselves. And I was like, I'm out of a job, so why not? I'm still searching. Yeah, let's do it. So I did, and that is what started my first company. And it's funny because in the pre-show, we were talking about, some of the great leaders that are out there, folks like Jeb Blunt, Anthony Iannarino, all folks that I absolutely respect. And as I reached out to all of these folks and many others not mentioned, I asked them, I said, what is it going to take to become a sales influencer? Everybody told me, you got to write a book. That is the way to be able to become a sales influencer. Now, I don't know what's wrong with me, but anytime someone ever told me that I have to go left to go right, I'm like, watch me go right to go get to the right, right? And so someone told me that, and I said, well, I don't want to write a book. And still to this very day, I've not written a book. But what I did do is I became a video master, and I was one of the first people to start pushing out video content and podcasting. And as a result, within 9 months, I became a sales influencer on the top charts. And that led me to continue to 1 year later to actually do a 7-way company merger to take 7 businesses and form them collectively under the name Vengreso and form the world's largest digital sales prospecting training company. And now fast forward just to about a few years ago, and the CEO of the world's largest sales training company, Miller Hyman Group. His assistant reached out and said, "Hey, the CEO is going to be in town. Would you like to, or be open to having a meeting with him?" And I was like, "Of course, yeah." Because when we came out of Vengreso, we knew that there were like 20 to 25 dominant players that were in the sales training space. You know, the Miller Hymans of the world, the Sandlers of the world, Medics, everything else. And so we figured out that really the missing gap was, if you look at the spectrum, there was pre-hello to hello, and then hello to close. And all of the sales training companies were in this hello to close phase. Hardly anyone was in the pre-hello to hello, which arguably is the hardest part of the selling cycle. In fact, 69% of all sellers in our last research project was 1,295 respondents said, yep, selling is the hardest part of the sales. Prospecting is the hardest part of the sales process. And so I said, we're going to make plant our flag here. And that's where we did. So Miller Hyman reached out to me. And this is a great story. I love this. This is true story. No joke. Hour and a half into the breakfast meeting that I had, we literally signed a faux contract on a napkin with 2 X's. And we literally put it in, and my first engagement with Miller Hyman was something like $50K, I think it was. And within a matter of months, after starting to do some consulting with them, the CEO said to me, "You've got something that we're interested in. I want to deploy this out to my entire sales organization." We did, and we signed now a large contract. And it was the first time in 43-year company history that a Miller Hyman Group hired an outside sales training company, and that was our company. And we exclusively focus in on sales prospecting. Consequently, they were actually acquired 11 months later by Korn Ferry, of which then Korn Ferry turned around and hired Vengreso as well. Not too long thereafter. It took about a year, but we got through that. So that's kind of in the history and the journey. It's been pretty amazing to see all these opportunities that have come up. And now we did another pivot within Vengreso, where Vengreso is the creators of FlyMSG. We created FlyMSG as a sales productivity and engagement tool for the sales community, or what we thought was the sales community. Turns out 50% of our users are non-sellers. Accounts payable, lawyers, doctors, accounts receivable, online digital pharmacists, college professors, anybody who uses repeatable messaging, like take digital pharmacists. They're messaging customers like yourself saying, "Hey, we received your prescription. Your prescription didn't go through. You couldn't process your insurance." These are all standard templates. So they were utilizing FlyMSG as a text expander to quickly get all those messages out in the forms that they wanted to get them out. So I realized that the training and service space, our largest buyer was Miller Hyman. They got acquired. That killed my entire focus of being acquired by another sales training company. Would there be others? Yeah, but the difference in terms of size of millions was like, a $350 million company, and maybe, Sandler being an $80 million company down to a $20 million company. So it was like dramatic jump between the number 1 and number 2, and then the number 3 and below, right? So I looked at it and I said, well, maybe the way we need to go at this is we need to still be offered sales prospecting training, which is what we do through Fly Learning, which is part of FlyMSG, and some training services, because a fool with a tool is still a fool. And so what we focused on was, I'm going to teach a rep how to go about engaging, teach a rep how to go about messaging, and then I'm going to give you the tool, FlyMSG, to quickly scale all those activities. And so that started 4 years ago. Fast forward 4 years later, we've got 20,000 users on the platform, and we're converting roughly about 4.7% of all users into paid users on the product-led growth side, which is right in line. 2 to 4% is your goal. So that's right in line there. And then on the enterprise side, I'm happy to say that we actually didn't convert into a full SaaS company until 2 years ago. And we signed our first ever multi-year license SaaS agreement that is over $100,000 a year. And we just did that at the end of 2024 in December, as a matter of fact. So I'm excited. It's been a lot of milestones, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, literally a lot of tears. many times that I thought we were going to go under, many, many times. And so the journey from corporate to entrepreneur hasn't been easy, especially because I was always big corporate. And entrepreneur, I've had to learn to wear many, many, many hats. As a byproduct, long-winded answer to your question, as a byproduct, not only did I become a sales influencer, but I became a top marketing influencer as well. Companies like SAP, Project 44, Miller Hyman, Korn Ferry, all brought me in on a consulting basis to help them scale their marketing efforts in order to be able to drive sales leads to the sales organization. So it's been an amazing journey, and I couldn't be more happy with the journey that we've been on.
Well, I mean, that's exciting, right? Because there's a lot of entrepreneurs listening to this. And I consider myself an entrepreneur. I've been doing this for 10 years. And it's not a nice, straight, smooth line to growth. There is a lot of bumpy up and down along the way. But to me, that's part of the fun of being creative and figuring it out. But there's one theme there. You called it, before the hello, right? This attraction, this attention component of that. But that's been a niche. That's been the focus, and I think that's a big thread out of all of that. But if we can stay focused on what it is what our intent was, and not get distracted by that shiny object over there, right? And go and try to be everything to all people, right? Just go do that. The guys that are really good at the other thing will bring you in because you have a better mousetrap, because we're refining it, we're getting it better. It's a great story. It really gives some people hope, right? That if you keep your nose to the grindstone and you stay focused on that niche, it will pay off.
When we first started out, it was FlyMSG.io or .ai. It was a text expander. So meaning you can literally take any of your snippets of text that you house in a Google Doc, Word Doc, OneNote, Evernote, Notepad, Notebook, draft email, or worse yet, you hunt and peck for it for your sent folder. And then you would copy, paste. So you could take all these messages with images, videos, whatever, put them into the cloud, and then create a short code. We call it a fly cut, and type that on your keyboard anywhere online. So I can type out, as an example, -bio for my bio, and all my different versions of a bio and all my images will pop up inside of a message. And so we originally created that because we had over 60 different sales scripts that sellers could use as part of our sales training on demand program for prospecting. And sellers were taking our playbook and they would copy, paste. And so we created it so that you could put it into the cloud. And that's what we went to market with. And that's actually how we got our first round of funding of roughly about $600,000, that people thought, okay, there's a market for this and there are other players that have gotten funded before you. And so we'll invest. And so the good news is we got some money to be able to take it to the next level. But again, thinking about, did we almost go out of business multiple times, right? And so our investors came back to us and said, listen, your competitors may have done a siloed focus, but they got $30 million 2 years ago. So they've got the revenue runway. You don't, right? And so why did you build FlyMSG? And that one question asked by Right Side Capital Investors, which is an amazing VC that I work with, love that team over there. They asked me to say, why did you build FlyMSG to begin with? And I had to go back to say, I built it because to support our sales prospecting training program. And they said, but what about that? And so I started digging deeper, and they said, well, after we went through this series of questions, they said, you got to develop a sales-led growth solution. And I sat back and I started looking at all of the great sales technology companies that we know that are out there today that are the unicorns. Apollo, ZoomInfo, Gong, as an example, right? Some great unicorn-like platforms. And I started looking at it, and I realized something very quickly when you started peeling this onion back. And Apollo.io was actually the one that led the charge here, Tim Zhang. And when he came to market with a 4-in-1 solution. 4 things that this product does, and you only need to buy one product in order to be able to get these 4 elements. And then all of a sudden they started kicking Zoom Info's butt. And Zoom Info said, well, wait a minute, we need to actually start looking at doing this. And they started acquiring companies to bring in the technology. And then Gong said, well, wait a minute, we need to do the same thing. And so if you looked at all of them, they're an X in one category, 3 in 1, 2 in 1, 4 in 1, 5 in 1. And so that's when I looked back and I said, all right, we've got to be an X in 1 type of solution. And we've got to fit the motion of a salesperson and how to increase their productivity, at the same time increase engagement with a target buyer. And so that's when we started modeling in our social media post generator for salespeople. The number one problem that sales leaders face is, we want you to create a brand. Great. We want you to use LinkedIn. Awesome. But if you don't hack the algorithm, then all of that connecting with somebody on LinkedIn or in mailing is for nothing, right? And you're using Sales Navigator for no reason whatsoever, which is arguably the second most expensive tool in the arsenal behind the CRM, right? And so Sales Navigator, usually about $1,000 to $1,500 per person per year, most expensive sales tool. And where we were brought in Vengreso was when companies like Cisco or ADP, they were having problems and they had like less than 30% adoption. And that's usually where we were brought in, and still are brought in today, this very day, to help increase that by either the company or LinkedIn. So I look back and I was like, the big problem is people don't post content. Why? Well, the reason why they don't post content is 2 things. Number one, I as a salesperson don't have domain authority in the segment that I'm selling to: IT, networking, security, finance, whatever that might be. I don't have the domain authority to map my expertise at the same level as the C something. Number 2, if I did have a little bit of domain authority, on average, it took me 32 minutes to write a social media post. 32 minutes, average. Now, I don't know about you, but when I sat in the seat as a VP of sales with a fairly large team, I didn't want them spending 32 minutes on anything unless it was strategy, right, to close a deal. So definitely not on prospecting activities. That is not okay. So then we look back and we said, all right, what about commenting on LinkedIn? So interestingly enough, if any sales leader listening to this discussion right now, I guarantee if you go back to your sales organization, and likely if you've got 30 sales folks to 100 sales folks, 100% you've got somebody running sales enablement. Usually some sales ops, sales enablement, you got somebody running that. If you go back right now, guaranteed, you go ask to look at the cadences that your reps are using for outbound. With 100% certainty, you've got a LinkedIn step 2, 3, or 4 inside there to either connect, to engage on a social post, or to send an email. So here's the problem. There's been so much noise that has been created as a result of platforms like SalesLoft and Outreach Apollo, great platforms, abused and misused incorrectly, but so much noise. Volume of emails gone up by almost 80 plus billion more emails year after year, and especially after COVID. We are now turning around using these automation platforms to essentially spray and pray, right? We'll take our bad email that we used and put that onto an in-mail. Then someone goes and sends a random connection request to an individual buyer, not even realizing the importance of understanding the algorithm. Here's how an algorithm works. You and I, Walter, we connect on LinkedIn. Let's just say I send you a connection request. First, it's got to be personalized. So how do you personalize that message? That's what we teach in our training program, and that's what we use FlyMSG for to help you write that connection request. Next, let's assume that I send a personalized connection request to you and you accept that connection request. What do most reps do? They turn around and they pick up the phone or they email the individual, not even realizing that the next step on a connection request is for me to send you what I call a welcome message. That welcome message is designed to have 3 components in less than 111 words. 1, personalization. 2, value. 3, a call to action. And that call to action could be book a meeting. It could be, are you having this problem? It could be, do any of these events sound My goal is ask a question to get you to solicit a response, because here's how the algorithm works. I send you a connection request, you accept it, I send you one message, and I want one message back. The moment that I get one message back, from that point on for the next 4 weeks, my content shows up in your newsfeed, your content shows up in my newsfeed. So wait a minute. If I knew that as a leader, then I would make sure that my reps who are using LinkedIn as a forum to connect, that they're actually, one, sending a personalized personalized connection request, and then a welcome message, and two, that they're posting content so that when Walter is sitting on the toilet going through his news feed or before bedtime, and you're sitting there and scrolling before bedtime, my content is leading you to our solution. But most reps don't know that. And so what we did was with FlyMSG is we actually took the ability of all of our social selling training, modeled into the AI, and now we're writing posts for reps, and we're doing commenting, because the commenting was the other problem. Here's the problem. In order for me to get a connection request, and this is why I think sales cadences are so wrong. Again, sales leaders, you're listening in, CEOs, go back to your sales cadence. I guarantee you that in your cadence, you probably have a connection request listed in your cadence, and it's probably listed before you even warm that contact up. Usually most cadences are email, phone, connection request. Are you kidding me? You haven't earned the right to get me to accept you into my network, and you certainly didn't know how to send it personalized. So we brought FlyEngage AI to the table so that when I go to your LinkedIn profile, what I do is I look at all your posts, I then read all your posts, I then try to determine which one am I going to write a comment on, and I then stare at a white comment screen. 2 problems, same as posted content. I didn't know what to write, and it took too much time, 6 to 12 minutes. So what we're doing now, right embedded into LinkedIn, is we're using AI and our social selling training and our modeling that we modeled into the AI, and we're actually writing comments back for individual users on buyers' posts. And here's the thing. What used to take 6 to 12 minutes for a comment now takes less than 45 seconds. What used to take 32 minutes to write a social media post now takes less than 6 minutes on our platform. And we're now giving you all that thought leadership. But here's the kicker. The kicker is that I am teaching you how to engage using this particular channel. And it's not just LinkedIn, but I'm focusing on one particular channel. The kicker is also that I'm helping your reps increase their productivity and using that omni-channel approach to engaging with their target buyer.
But there's something even bigger, right? Because there's a lot of CEOs listening. There's a lot of sales leaders listening that are out there, and some of them just assume that salesperson knows how to do all of the stuff that you described, right? They don't know that they need to go out and look at their buyers, their posts and comment on them and like things and make meaningful comments, not just like, oh, great idea, right? They have to be relevant. I've actually seen a fairly famous guy in the space literally write down, here's how you get my attention, the 4 steps, put it into a LinkedIn post. He's got 10,000 views, and not one person followed his instruction. That, because here's what I would buy, here's the things I look at, and he told them how to do it, and nobody did it, right? So to your point, you're helping people become more productive at prospecting, the hardest thing in sales. It's their biggest challenge, and you're helping them understand how they're supposed to do it. You're giving them the how as well as the what to do it. You're giving them the tool, and you're making it, because it's the biggest thing I see, that the salespeople don't have a good message. That there's not that they're expected to come up with all of these words and messaging that is congruent with the marketing, and salespeople don't have that skill set. Not that they're not willing to do it, it's just that they don't know how to do it well. And you get all of those spammy things that you were talking about. So your platform, Can somebody that's got 5, 6 salespeople, is this relevant for them? Is that going to help them?
Well, the beauty of it is with 20,000 users, majority of our users are what's called product-led growth. Product-led growth is the individual knows that they have a problem and they go out to go find their own solution. And so you can actually download it from the Chrome store, from the Edge store, FlyMSG, and begin using it immediately for free, no credit card required. For the corporation, whether you've got 5 sellers or whether you've got 1,000 or 10,000 sellers, 100%, we have our enterprise program. And of course, on the enterprise side, we offer more services and product portfolio. But to illustrate how valuable this was to the market, between January of 2021 and February of 2024, so roughly 3 years, FlyMSG wrote 1.1 billion characters. Now, that was a huge milestone that we hit in February of 2024. I was so proud. We did it with a press release for the company, 1.1 billion characters, right? Over 1 billion characters that we typed. Now, from March of 2024 to December of 2024, just 10 months, we did an additional 1.1 billion characters. All from users utilizing us in writing posts and writing comments. And we have scaled productivity for individual users. Someone actually asked me for my individual productivity alone, and I've saved over $21,000 just on my individual productivity alone, just by utilizing something that's going to help me write content. And all I have to do now is sit there and edit the content and read. So it's human-assisted AI. I think it's very important. We're not auto-commenting. We do not believe in auto-commenting at all. That's very important. And I'll never create the product that does auto-commenting, because why? I need the seller to use their God-given brain, right? To be able to look at, is this contextually relevant? Does this make sense? How do I change that? And all in all, across all of our users, just as an idea, us writing as a sales AI writing tool, we've now, present date, hot off the press, 2.4 billion characters we've typed, and over $5.7 million in productivity savings. That is literally the latest number as of this very minute that I just gave you. And I'm very proud of that. That is a huge accomplishment for the sales industry and non-sellers at that as well. I will say one more thing too, and that is, let me find something to knock on wood. I actually had last week a letter of intent accepted for our first acquisition. And I am very, very excited over what we're going to be bringing to the market. Here you go. For the last 9 years, we have built Vengreso off of purely digital sales prospecting. I did everything sales prospecting except for one thing: train and coach on cold calling. Namely because sales leaders are generally at that 45 and older category. And at 45 and older, you've built your entire career off of picking up the phone and calling people. So you really don't need help in that area. And there's literally 10 million consultants that are out there that do, cold calling training. But here you go. We found a great company that built an AI sales role-playing software that allows a rep or a BDR to go in and actually practice with a persona, real time with voice, practice before you get on the phones. And then it usually
To get the reps in.
Exactly right. To get the reps in. Exactly right. So they get to practice this over and over and over again with the personas that they build inside of the platform. And I'm supposed to be sending our purchase agreement over by tomorrow. And I've been getting various different pieces of feedback. And what that will do for us is we own the digital sales prospecting space. You want to teach your reps how to be able to message to slice through the noise? That's us, Vengreso. You want to teach them how to be able to leverage LinkedIn? There is no company that is bigger, badder, and better than us. And I can say that honestly because we are the biggest and the baddest in that space. Video prospecting, same exact thing. And now add on the fourth and final element, which is cold calling. We're going to have an AI, supposedly, hopefully, cross my fingers, we should have an AI sales coach that will help your reps get their reps in order to be able to practice that cold call before they practice live on a customer.
I'm excited for you, right? I'm excited to check this out myself, but I'm really excited because that packages that whole front end together. It's gonna make it's gonna make the reps better. You're gonna elevate the game. You're gonna elevate the profession, and you're gonna make them more effective, more productive. We get rid of, because I mean I don't know how many I get a day. I don't count, but somebody makes a connection request, and then you get a pitch. You get a connection request, and you get a pitch, and you can tell that it's going to happen. But if we can get away from that and actually add value to people, life becomes much, much easier, and that's what you're providing. The know-how, the understanding of what it is that you need to do, and then the tool to make it simple so that we will actually go do the work.
You hit the nail on the head. And actually, you heard me say this earlier. Look, a fool with a tool is still a fool. I don't care if it's the click of your mouse on LinkedIn. I don't care if it's the use of Outreach, SalesLoft, or Apollo to be able to scale out a email blast, or any other technology that you're using, or a phone to pick up and call someone. A fool with the tool is still a fool. And so our objective is, I want to be able to teach sellers how to prospect better. I want to teach them how to be able to engage with their buyer. And then we give them the technology that helps them to be able to scale that engagement. So I'm very excited about that, along with a whole slew of other things that we'll be bringing forth to the sales community, with our main focus being centered around the byproduct of all of these things is I want to make you more productive, whether I'm coaching you how to make better calls, or whether I'm writing for you content. I want to make you more productive, and everything funnels right back into time saved and cost savings.
And helping them understand the nature of the space, right? How to cut through that noise, because that's huge. There's so much noise out there, and to be able to stand out and differentiate yourself, position yourself is key. So, Mario, you've said a bunch of things here that the audience should be excited about, because getting salespeople to prospect is a challenge. Getting them to do it well is really, really a challenge. So, what's the best way for them to go dig in and go get more information?
Well, first, you can go to our website, flymsg.io or .ai. You could also get to us through vengreso.com. People wonder who's Vengreso, who's FlyMSG. It's just like Meta and Facebook. That's all. Vengreso, FlyMSG, interchangeable. Google understands who we are. So flymsg.ai or .io is our website. You could also connect with me on LinkedIn. But if you come to my LinkedIn profile and you send me a connection request, do not send me a generic connection request. You must say, you heard me with Walter on Sales and Cigars podcast. I need to know where you're coming from, people. So please make sure that you let me know where you're coming from. We've also got a phenomenal YouTube channel that has a plethora of free training, sales training as well, very specifically out there and available. So you're welcome to go ahead and use our YouTube channel. And then you can find us on any of the various other social media channels like TikTok and or Instagram, and you can see any of our content there with Vengreso or mine personally.
So all of that's going to be in the show notes, folks. And I would really encourage you to go dig into this and figure out how your team can elevate in the prospecting to be more productive and to elevate their game, right? It's not a game. It's a very serious business. But in terms of their skill set, their mindset, this is going to give them power. It's going to change their outlook, and they're going to be more effective. So I really encourage everybody to go out and check this out. Last question, Mario, and I think I know the answer. I'm going to ask it anyway. any relationship with cigars?
Actually, believe it or not, no, I have no relationship with cigars whatsoever. I do love the smell of them, but I've never smoked it, primarily because I'm an asthmatic. And so never inhaled, never put it up to my lips, never smoked it before. But of course, I've enjoyed being here on the show with you, Walter, at Sales and Cigars Podcast.
I appreciate everything that you shared, taking the time out. Good luck with the acquisition. You're just going to keep building 5, 6, 7, 1, right? You're just going to keep building that out. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, buddy. I appreciate it so much.
Thanks for listening to the Modern Selling Podcast. Please do me a huge favor and give the Modern Selling Podcast a 5-star rating and review on iTunes. Oh, and don't forget, if you'd like to save 20 hours or more in a month and increase your productivity, go right now and download FlyMSG, that's FlyMSG.io, for free. It's your free text expander and personal writing assistant. Hey, thanks for listening in, and until the next episode, good selling.